partnerships, the role of partnerships. How do partnerships enrich the work of a lab, and how does a lab become a platform for partnership building?
By its nature, an academic institution is part of a community. It operates on the basis of the partnership and relationship that it has with primarily its students, its faculty, and directly with agencies or with stakeholders that are part of the university's vision and mission, or the work that it does in terms of instruction, research, and extension work. But more than that, I think aside from being passive observers or more so as being part of an ivory tower, so to speak, academic institutions have a role to play, and they can make this role more meaningful by being engaged in the lives of the stakeholders in the community where they operate. And this means really taking time to understand and to appreciate what happens on the ground outside the four walls of the campus, and in joining other stakeholders in looking for solutions, in looking for responses, especially those that require innovation and creativity, because that's the value added of universities, to push innovation and creativity outside the boundaries of the classroom and outside the walls of the university. Because by engaging in the larger life of the community where they operate, they're able to provide stakeholders with a platform to engage one another and become more creative and look at problems and solutions more innovatively.
So what kind of partnerships can a university weave together? There are government agencies, there are private companies in the community, there are poor households in the community. What kinds of partnerships have you seen been forged by the universities you've worked with?
At the core of these partnerships will still be capacity building, but we're expanding and deepening interpretation of capacity building beyond the walls of the classroom and beyond or outside the walls of the university. Capacity building in the context of their work in the lab means really engagement with various stakeholders, with different markets of the community where they operate, and making sure what are the capacity gaps and trying to fill that gap, whether that's in the field of leadership and governance, technology and research, community development, etc., etc. That distinct value added of building capacity beyond the professional or academic courses that the university provides, and that is rooted in the appreciation of what the community needs and what the other stakeholders require to be able to make a more responsive and a more creative response to these issues is a value added of the university in these partnerships.
So not just teaching the textbook to students.
Yes, not just providing them with degrees or certificates, but narrowing the gap between theory and practice, getting feedback on how their training impacts performance, for example, of not just students, but in the case of the labs, the stakeholders that are enrolled in their capacity building programs, so that they're able to customize, they're able to develop better, they're able to expand the range of services that they are offering their stakeholders. And in a way, this really deepens and expands and nurtures the partnerships and makes the partnerships go beyond the traditional mode of engagement.
So what kinds of partnerships have you seen between the universities? Do they end up entering into a contract with the city, and then what is in that contract that reflects the nature of their partnership?
Well, we've seen some of our academic partners not just sign actual agreements or documents that describe the work that they will do in the lab or the work that they will do as part of their engagement with specific stakeholders. But we've also seen academic institutions part of what we call in the Philippines, for example, at the regional level, regional development councils, where various government agencies are represented and where solutions to regional level problems or to complex issues are discussed and designed.
And they tap the university for that.
Yes, and it's a great opportunity for academic institutions to contribute to the interpretation, as appreciation, and the design of the intervention that will be implemented, because that benefits the council as a whole, because, well, immediately you have the experts, quote unquote, in the scientific or professional fields from the academe, and they also have the experience working with local stakeholders on the ground, and that's what they bring to these councils. In the case of our engagement, specifically in public health, we've seen many academic institutions become part of the municipal or provincial health boards.
Okay.
Where,
so they sit in a policy-making body in the province.
Policy-making, and this is also where the budget, and this is also where the programs for public health are discussed and approved, and this is also where these programs are monitored. And throughout this cycle, academic institutions contribute very meaningfully by putting in their resources, putting in their expertise, putting in their experience, working with mayors, working with barangay health volunteers, and all this becomes part of the program. All these are considered in the drafting of the budget, and as a result, the programs become more responsive and the funds are utilized more effectively. And at the end of the day, the local health system performs better and outcomes are improved.
So how do you teach? Well, a teacher, the typical teacher, teaches in the classroom, gives assignments, then checks papers, and then that's over. How do you teach instructor to develop partnerships?
I think it starts with making them aware that, well, in our framework, 70% of content, 70% of knowledge can in fact be learned from outside the classroom, or from the experience of their students and from the practice of the profession where these professionals or where these leaders are engaged. And they have to be able to have the interest and the commitment to explore that wealth of knowledge outside the classroom.
So you push them out of the classroom and say, okay, talk to...
Yes, definitely. They have to go and, well, learn from their students and learn from their stakeholders, because that's the only way they'll realize and they'll be able to use what's out there, what constitutes knowledge that can be used to make learning more effective, more experiential, and more functional, more meaningful.
How does a college student benefit from a teacher who's involved in all these partnership activities? I mean, I'm here to study nursing or sociology. How is a teacher involved in all of this partnership building different from somebody who teaches the textbook?
Well, immediately he gets, or the student gets, real-time and real-world information. His information, or the information shared by the teacher, will not just come from textbooks or from journals, but it will come from day-to-day experiences, day-to-day. It will be heavily contextualized to the experiences and the needs of the students and to the needs of the society or the sector where the student gets to practice his or her profession. So there will be less disconnect from between theory and practice, and there will be more meaning in the learning because it resonates with day-to-day experience. And in that sense, learning becomes, well, less tedious, more interesting, more cross-sectoral, more cross-functional, and it really becomes more focused on what an individual wanting to make a difference in the sector needs to acquire, in terms of practicing eventually that profession or deploying or applying that skill or that knowledge that he learned from the classroom and making the most immediate impact from the practice or the deployment of the skills that he learned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, say we have viewers who are instructors who want to try out partnership building. What tips can you give? In fact, we have social labs where the teachers are just about to enter into new partnerships, start cultivating new partnerships. What tips can you give instructors who are about to engage in partnership building?
Well, first of all, I think in the range of activities or in the range of opportunities that are open to them in a lab or in an engagement with other stakeholders, they have to find out what resonates the most with what the lab wants to do and with what they want to do, what they want to contribute personally to the lab and to the work of the institution. For example, if faculty is a nurse and the lab wants to contribute to public health, then the faculty must explore what options or what stakeholders are engaged in public health and become involved in those stakeholders and in those programs or activities that are relevant professionally and individually to the faculty member. Because it cannot be something that's forced or that's artificial. The alignment or the buy-in must be personal,
heartfelt,
and it must come from the core. It must be something that's one is really interested in and one will really want to become part of.
And so she has to be passionate about it.
Yes, and of course she has to be familiar basically with what the stakeholder or what the program or what the advocacy is all about, because at the end of the day he wants to contribute something meaningful or something that's value added to the partner.
So they have to develop some mastery in that
yes,
area.
Definitely. And I think from that engagement, he also has to see some benefit out of that engagement, either from a personal advocacy point of view to deepen or strengthen his or her buy-in or commitment to that advocacy, or in terms of professional development by learning more about how a particular sector operates or how a particular advocacy is operationalized, or financially how can he benefit from it by perhaps allowing him to develop a skill that he can market, that he can become good at providing other stakeholders, or become part of a package of services that he and his team can market to other stakeholders. So those are some of the tips that we've seen work with some of the faculty that we've worked with in our engagement in labs like the one that we want to organize.
Okay. So that wraps up our conversation on partnership building and the role of instructors and university leaders in cultivating partnerships as part of the lab.
Thank you.
Thank you.